It's raining, it's pouring, although it does seem super bright actually further west. I don't know if it'll stop here anyways. And what I read today, how about this one? It was kind of interesting. Many times when you talk about things, let's just say like a robot or a drone per se, one of the good things is it doesn't feel anything. It's just there to do the task. So a robot, for example, let's just say you could push it or whatever, it's not going to feel pain, it just gets back up. But how about in this case where it says they're planning to potentially give things like drones, quote, I guess, pain sensors in a sense. Like it says here, giving drones a sense of pain could help them predict instability before it happens. So why would you do this? From reading this, the basic concept is, imagine it like you as a human, where if you're running, for example, and your leg gets hurt, then all of a sudden you would stop. You wouldn't try to keep, for example, running as you would, because you could further, let's just say, injure yourself. Or at the same time, if your leg on one side is injured, then you should essentially put, let's just say, more pressure on the other leg that's fully intact, if that's what you want to say anyways, if something really bad happened. So that's kind of the concept here. For example, imagine flying a drone and right now it crashes or something like that. Let's just say on the left side. For the most part, the drones nowadays will just be, okay, whatever, it still flies, keep going. But in this case, it should theoretically detect some kind of pain or damage within that side, and then as a result, it'll adjust its movements, for example, or instructions based on that. From perspective, can you see any reason why this would be a negative to implement in various tech like a drone? So is there something that we're missing?
A few real downsides stand out. It can be noisy in windy or turbulent conditions. Wind gusts can mimic the same slowing down signals, leading to false alarms or missed warnings. It doesn't tell you how close you are to actually losing control or what's wrong, just that something's off. So the drone might flag a problem but not know whether to land immediately or just be cautious. It needs a clean, normal baseline to compare against. If the drone was already a bit unstable from the factory, the warning system might not catch problems early enough. Processing these signals in real time on cheap consumer drones could add computational load or require better sensors than most have.
Oh, that's kind of interesting. I didn't actually think of that in terms of, let's just say, a wind gust being detected as the drone getting hit or something like that. Is it kind of like how I know for a lot of drone operators, even myself, for example, when you fly the drone and if there's obstacle sensors basically there that are meant to protect you from, let's say, crashing into a tree or something like that, sometimes it misidentifies object, or let's just say the sun, for example, that's shining at the drone. It detects all that bright light as an object. So is it kind of like that in terms of, let's just say, a drawback, just for perspective and for people to understand it?
Yeah, it's very similar to that exact problem with obstacle sensors. Just like how bright sunlight or reflective surfaces can trick a drone's vision sensors into thinking there's a wall or tree right in front of it, wind gusts can trick this new pain system. Sudden turbulence makes the drone's sensors show the same patterns that damaged propellers would.
Oh, that's fascinating to think about. But either way, I guess you have to develop the tech, because when you get it right, I suppose, then it will be very useful, especially if you're using autonomous operations anyways. And this was a fascinating read, as it deals with what sounds like somebody being a shyster, if that's what you want to say, where he was getting people to give him, I guess, money and so forth, claiming that he was fighting against, let's say, like things like communism. And as a result, apparently a journalist wanted to expose him, but because of that guy's, I guess, money and exposure, all his, I suppose you could say, supporters kept harassing the journalists and so forth. But I guess with that, it ultimately went to court. And it says here, BC journalist tormented by Chinese Tycoon's followers relieved after jail sentence. So can you just give some brief details first for people to understand who's involved and the background, as I mentioned, in terms of one being a journalist, and just be very quick in terms of how he was scamming people in general?
The journalist is Benson Gao, a Chinese-Canadian reporter based in Surrey, BC. He publicly criticized Guo Wengui and exposed problems with his movement. The tycoon is Guo Wengui, also known as Miles Guo. He's a former Chinese real estate billionaire who fled China and positioned himself in the US as a big anti-communist activist. He built a huge online following by promising to fight the Chinese Communist Party. How he scammed people. Guo convinced thousands of his followers to invest in his projects like GTV, a media company, and the Himalaya Exchange, a crypto platform. Instead of responding to the specific claims, Guo publicly labels him a CCP spy and traitor. He then launches what he calls a global campaign to eliminate traitors, directly calling on his followers to protest at the journalist's home, pressure him to delete his posts and stop criticizing him.
So this is really fascinating because I've often talked about the topics such as, let's just say for the things like the drone regulations anyways, and how there's so many fake organizations or people who are just saying they're fighting for you, but they want to take your money. Because this story actually gets me to think where, if that's true anyways, this is kind of a classic example where a guy could say he's fighting for you and so forth, but in reality it's more about just making themselves rich. And the other interesting thing is, with the story of the journalist, I guess, speaking out and doing the investigation, if I'm understanding this correctly from what I'm reading, the journalist doesn't regret, for example, what he did because it's the right thing to do to, let's just say, expose something, but he was expressing how, because of this, he's never going to, let's just say, investigate the person again, because fundamentally, even if you're saying the truth, for example, you're fighting for like people's rights in that way, it's just not worth it, or it's very risky to fight against someone that has so many resources. And I think that's something that people often forget. Can you tell me why in Vancouver downtown right now I see a FIFA labeled bus and it says Switzerland? What's that about? Is there a FIFA game happening like here in Vancouver with Switzerland players?
It's the FIFA Women's World Cup. Vancouver is one of the host cities for the 2027 FIFA Women's World Cup. The Swiss team is currently here in town for training camp or a pre-tournament friendly. Those branded team buses you're seeing downtown are part of the team's official arrival and media setup. So yes, you're seeing the actual Switzerland women's national team bus in Vancouver right now. The tournament itself starts next summer, June-July 2027, but teams are already coming over for preparation.
Are you positive about that? Just to make sure, since there is a regular FIFA game happening around the world right now, just to make sure you're not hallucinating. So you're saying this bus I see right now, it's the women's FIFA Switzerland team, for example, or soccer team rather, being prepared, like for training?
Yeah, I was wrong. Sorry about that. The bus you're seeing is for the men's Switzerland national team, not the women's team. Vancouver is hosting matches for the 2026 FIFA Men's World Cup right now. The Women's World Cup is actually next year in Brazil, not here. My bad on mixing that up.
So to clarify, there is a FIFA game today here in BC Place. I'm kind of curious, why did you hallucinate there?
Yes, there is a game today. Switzerland versus Algeria in the round of 32 of the 2026 FIFA Men's World Cup is scheduled at BC Place tonight at 8 p.m. PT. As for why I hallucinated earlier, I mixed up the Men's 2026 World Cup, which is happening right now in Canada, Mexico, and the USA, with the women's tournament. That was a straight-up mistake on my part. The men's tournament is live and Vancouver is hosting this knockout match tonight. Sorry about the earlier confusion.
I know I'm pushing it, but can you specifically elaborate why you made the mistake? Because many times you're really good at gathering the facts, but you have these frequent times where you completely, let's just say, misread the situation, giving out inaccurate information. So is there a specific reason, like why you had what you said before, for example, or for a lot of AI, a brain fart?
Yeah, that one's on me. The honest reason is I jumped to a conclusion too fast. When you said FIFA plus Switzerland plus Vancouver downtown, my brain immediately went to the Women's World Cup because Switzerland's women's team has had some high-profile moments recently, and I associated Vancouver with big women's soccer events. I didn't pause to double-check what major tournaments are actually happening right now in 2026. I just ran with the first thing that popped into my head. It's not really a brain fart in the human sense, it's more like pattern matching gone wrong. I saw a few matching keywords and confidently filled in the wrong context without verifying the actual current event, the 2026 Men's World Cup. That's exactly the kind of mistake that happens when an AI is too quick to answer instead of slowing down to confirm the facts first. Appreciate you calling me on it.
Okay, no drone flying today, I guess. Oh, in general too, I noticed some of you were actually using that YouTube post in the community, for example, to try to alert me about certain stories that you actually would be interested in if I, let's just say, talk about it or find out about what it's all about and maybe offer some perspective. I know this thing for some reason, I don't know, it starts filtering like so much stuff. I don't get alerted by it, but in general, I was thinking if you are using that, maybe I should have like a set cutoff time per se for the day, where if you're trying to put something in front of me and you put it around a certain time, then I will likely be able to read it, let's just say during my walk and so forth, and I can actually include it because there's lots of stuff happening around the world that I'm unaware of. So it made me wonder if there's a good time actually, because I know everyone's around the world where if you're sleeping here, people could be awake somewhere else. So I was thinking maybe something like after 2 p.m. Pacific or something like that, where if there's anything before, then I would actually try to include it. If not, then it'll have to wait for the next day. All right, see you guys later.